What's going on, College Hoops heads? This is another live stream on the Center Hub's YouTube and Twitter page. My name is Stephen Bagel. I am joined by now SEC and Sunbelt aficionado. I don't know about before. Before he was just all knowledgeable college basketball. That's Conrad Pascual. And I am joined co-hosting today with Andrew Schaefer. We are 6 days away from the release of the magazine. If you are listening to this, in the bio of the YouTube page, go purchase it. $12 pre-order. We're covering all 365 teams. Like, at this point, we know what it's going to be like. We have the graphics done. We know what it looks like. We know the writing. The writing's getting edited as we speak. I cannot emphasize enough how worth you're not getting a more comprehensive piece of college basketball content throughout the season for $12. You're just not. So if you're a college basketball fan, if you're someone trying to learn more about college basketball, we'd greatly appreciate the support. Again, that's in the Center Hubs, in the video description of this YouTube page, or if you're watching on Twitter, it's our pinned tweet. Conrad, how are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Yeah, I sometimes have to remind myself that I'm out here in California, because for the last several weeks, I've been immersed in SEC and Sunbelt basketball,
Hey, we gave you the Big West too.
What's up?
You have the Big West too.
I did the Big West too. I did, and that I know them like the back of my hand. Well, more or less, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, it's definitely been a treat. Doing all the research, getting to interview all these coaches, definitely gets me even more excited for the upcoming season.
Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Excited to talk SEC basketball. They were the best conference last year. And the Sun Belt's one of the more fun mid-major leagues. Last year was kind of crazy, and looking forward to hear what Conrad has to say about it.
I'm drinking out of Phillies mug. It's actually my own tears that I'm drinking out of the Phillies mug.
Don't worry, I'm going to experience it tonight with the Yankees. Don't worry.
Oh, boy. But, okay. Conrad, my first question, I'm just going to just jump into the SEC. We're going to do, our typical 40 or so minutes on the SEC, maybe 35, 20, 25 minutes on the Sun Belt. We're coming off a year with the SEC that was quite literally historic in terms of the SEC was the first ever college basketball conference. They got 14 bids. I don't think 13 was ever done before. I think the record was the record 12 before last year or 11?
12.
So the SEC got 14 of the 16 teams in March Madness, which is literally madness. I mean, what's the encore look like? I mean, do they get 14 again? What do you realistically think is if you had to set a line in Las Vegas on the over and under on SEC teams getting in the tournament, what would you set it at?
11.5.
Okay. I think that's the number.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm with you. I think this upcoming season, I think a lot of the teams that participated or that received an NCAA tournament bid last year, several of them are going to come back strong, perhaps even stronger. There were a couple, though, who may take a slight step back. So I think, I think some of them will be on the outside looking in, but still, I think they're definitely going to be well represented. That's for sure.
For what it's worth, I did exercise, not for the magazine, but just okay, if we had to lay out 68 teams, 31 auto bids, basically for at-larges, I came up with 11 SEC teams making the tournament just based off who I think of the representatives of the 68 teams that should be in the tournament next year. Yeah. I did have 12 Big Ten teams for what that's worth, so I didn't have the SEC with the most bids. That's a testament to how good the Big 12 is this year. But okay, Andrew, do you want to get into, you and Conrad were just talking about, potential sleeper team in the SEC, which I do think that team is worth talking about. Should we just jump into that?
Yeah. So obviously Texas A&M made a hire, Conrad. They bring in Bucky, McMillan, Buzz Williams obviously moved on. Talk to me about what your expectation is in year one with Bucky and obviously putting together a whole new team. And obviously he plays a very unique style, as you know. What do you think the expectation is there in year one?
I mean, Coach McMillan, he's been very particular with his words this preseason and during off-season workouts. I think he's trying to temper expectations. I mean, obviously, of course, everybody wants to win. They want to, establish again. They're essentially establishing a new team identity, a new culture. So, of course, right? Um, you know, all teams that have played for Bucky McMillan, he always says everything you do has to be aggressive, right? So, having said that, I think he's trying to temper expectations because, okay, they may not, be able to pick things up immediately. Completely new system. When you bring in a guy like Bucky McMillan, you're bringing in his system. So, the roster is completely overhauled. To be fair, right? He's hand selecting all these players. He's not inheriting them. So he is selecting players that he believes can, you know, be incorporated into his preferred style of kind of like let's be real, right? Like a run and gun, a 5-out team, right? Borderline chaotic at times, right? At best controlled chaos, especially on the defensive end. They like to get out and run. They like to generate turnovers, generate extra possessions. They're expected to let it fly, from outside, especially in transition. Having said that, he has acknowledged that, okay, right, like as a first-year head coach, at least for A&M, there's a little bit of an uphill battle with regards to recruiting. So he's saying, like this might not have been the best crop of transfers, upperclassmen transfers to help kind of implement his system. But having said that, I don't know. I mean, at least on paper, he has like the archetypes that he's looking for. He's got a lot of rangy guys. Not He does still have a lot of length and size in the front court, but you know him. He wants guys that are mobile. He doesn't want guys that are just going to kind of like hover around the rim. He wants guys who can get up and down. He wants guys who can push the pace in transition. So, I mean, I think that's where I have a little bit of optimism for A&M. I think the Aggies do have a number of like combo forwards, guys who are essentially going to play like small ball 5. They're all capable of handling the rock. They can at least make efficient passes, right? Like in transition. And, if they force those turnovers, okay, right? But again, I think there is a lot of skepticism, from fans and media. I mean, it's one thing to be doing this at Samford. Can you actually do it against SEC competition? And that's to be determined.
For what it's worth, like, I'm writing the SoCon, so I had to think for the comments for a second, where Bucky previously coached at Samford in the SoCon. And I wrote the SoCon last year for the publication for the ECB House of College Hoops magazine last year. And again, I'm doing SoCon again this year. Like, people from the coaches I've talked to in SoCon, which is almost all of them, they didn't directly say it, but like they're thrilled Bucky McMillan is out of that conference. Like, just game planning against that guy as an opposing coach seems like a nightmare. With that said, don't have a good transition for this one, but like we need to talk about the defending champs,
Nice.
the Florida Gators. That's probably how we should have let off the show. But Florida, like, not only has a chance to repeat as SEC champions, like, I know Blue Ribbon has them ranked number 1 in their preseason. I'm interested to see where, one of the few things we still need to do for the magazine is we're waiting for a couple more top 25 teams to come in. So then we could do our top 25. I'm interested to see where Florida ends up with ours. Because, like, I think I have them, I think, third for what it's worth, with Purdue and Houston ahead of them. So, like, Florida's coming into next year, at worst, a top 5 team, probably a top 3 or top 4. The entire front court is back with Ruben Shinyelu, Tommy Howard, and
Alex Condon.
Yeah. And they have a good backcourt with Xavier. Like, I covered Xavier Lee at Princeton last year. He is awesome. Boogie Fland, he's awesome. I guess the question is, what does the depth look like? They have AJ Brown from Ohio. incoming. They have a couple high-level freshmen. But, like, there's a realistic chance a lot of repeats.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I'm hesitant to rank them number one. I mean, if we're being totally candid, I don't have them ranked number one, like overall.
Yeah.
In the nation. And at times, I don't know if it's like paralysis from analysis. At times I have wondered whether I still have them number one in the SEC. Don't kill me, Gator Nation. You know what I'm saying?
Who would you finish your thought, but then I want to get who you think would be number one in the SEC, if not that.
Yeah, but with the Gators, I mean Todd Golden, he's shown, in his first 3 years, he's a very open-minded dude, right? Like he'll take players and he'll, kind of adjust the system accordingly, right? So, I mean, you have Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, Elijah Martin. They were literally the top 3 scorers from Florida a year ago. I mean, there's no replacing them. I mean, like you don't just replace them, one for one or apples for apples. What you can do though is have apples and oranges, which is what I think Todd Golden tried to do here by bringing in both Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland. I know, right? Our fellow TCH coworker Corbin Ford, he's like Boogie Fland's number one fan, So I think he'll definitely be following the Gators a lot this year. But they play completely different stylistically, right, than their predecessors, where it gets kind of interesting, as you said, right? Like they have the talent on paper. How is it going to come together? Now, I know, Steven, you've been very, very proud and quick to share all the things that CBB Analytics, right, can offer, like
Hold on.
Oops Junkies. Yeah, you got to pull up
Give me a
the
second.
lineup numbers.
The combos with the front court.
Any lineup that featured Thomas Howe and Alex Condon.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to completely spoil the magazine, but let's just say it's pretty freaking elite. It's pretty freaking elite.
First off, I was talking to Nick from CBB Analytics today. I'm going to have to show him. So, Conrad, this is with all 3. I know you said to do the 2, but I had the 3 already typed in as you asked. Well, this is only 3 minutes. I said 99% is 3 minutes. It doesn't count. So let's do those 2. With the 2 of them on the floor together, 351 minutes, 100 percentile net rating, 100% offensive rating, 94 percentile defensive rating.
Jeez.
So going back to what you're saying, I mean, yeah, it may look different. I think they're definitely going to I think Golden wants to make a concerted effort to kind of not necessarily run the offense through Condon and Howe, but I mean, I think all the actions will definitely involve them, right? And Lee and Flan are there to help maximize what that front court duo can do. Lee and Flan are both analytics darlings. I mean, like their assist rate, assist to turnover ratio, and again, their rim frequency, their ability to crack the paint, draw fouls. These are the types of exactly things you want if you want to drive and kick to your stretch bigs, right? And I think this is something they're absolutely going to lean into. I do think it's interesting that Golden has said a number of times that Xavier Lee, he will be quarterbacking the offense. He's acknowledged that both Lee and Flan are point guards, but I think, Lee will actually be the primary ball handler, the primary facilitator.
As he should.
As he should be. Which will be interesting because Flan, I mean, he's not a bad shooter, but is definitely not a prolific catch and shoot player. So it'll be interesting to see how they integrate him. But I definitely understand the idea that at any given time you do have a high level playmaker, from the backcourt. So it's pretty interesting.
For what it's worth, I'm going back a couple months from an article I wrote. Basically, at the end of the college basketball season, I went over every NBA draft prospect I covered as credential media this year. And Xavier Lee was a part of the article because I covered him, I think, 4 or 5 different games. Usually when like someone says a walking paint touch, and I said this in my article, you think of a John Morant, you think of an Amen Thompson, you think of like an elite level athlete who just gets to the paint at will. Xavier Lee is a walking paint touch, and not
Yes,
because
he
of his
is.
athleticism. Just because of how crafty that guy is, like, he just finds ways to get to the rim. Like, it is unbelievable watching. It's a little poetic. Andrew, what are your thoughts on Florida? And then going off of that, Conrad, I want to get your again, I don't want you to give away your rankings. If anyone wants to see them, they'll buy the magazine. But if not Florida, then who in the SEC? Andrew, I'll start with you first.
Florida's really good. I don't think they're as good as last year. I think Conrad hit on everything. The concern for me is the defense in the backcourt specifically, I think, is going to be an issue for them. You know, Xavier Lee is not known for defense, neither is Flan. Flan's also been hurt. I mean, remember, he didn't play much for Arkansas last year. It took him a while to kind of get healthy. So I have some concerns there. I know he had some offseason stuff done, and, you know, Todd Golden, I think, said he's going to be ready. But I'm a little bit concerned defensively. I think offensively, they're going to be fine. So, you know, Boogie Flan can score. Xavier Lee can score. You know, Thomas Huff, I think, is going to be one of the more improved players in the country this year. I agree with you, Stephen. I think the question also is depth. Like, what else do they have outside of those 5 guys?
Yeah.
I know they have the 7'9" guy, Giroux, or whatever his name is, the big guy. I don't know if he's going to play much this year. But to me, the question would be the defense in the backcourt. But they're going to be, you know, top 3 in the SEC. They're going to be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they're going to be one of the favorites to go back to the title game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think Lee and Flan, the interesting thing is I would say that they're both good defensive playmakers, but they're not necessarily the best positional defenders. There is a distinction there because, I mean, especially Xavier, his steal rate is up there, you know, of all players, not just at his position. I believe like he's in the 95th or the 96th percentile in terms of steal rate or something like that. But again, yeah, I'm with you because if they struggle to keep their guys in front of them, then that does require them to continue playing big, which is not a bad thing with Chinyelu, but I think ideally they do envision them going small, right? With Ha and Condon as the 4 and 5. I'm not sure who that third guy is, you know, who plays like the Elijah Martin role, but that's TBD. But I do like what they can do. So yeah, I'm still high on them. I don't see them. I'm with you. I don't see them as like the clear-cut favorite in the SEC.
Okay, so then going back to my initial question, Conrad, if not Florida, then, I mean, like, last year they had Florida, they had Auburn, they had Alabama. Like, there were so many good teams. Who, obviously Kentucky as well. Who, if it's not Florida, is the best team or could be the best team in the SEC?
There are a lot of ifs with this team, but if the ifs are answered with, like, you know, positive outcomes, I really like Kentucky.
I like Kentucky.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like Kentucky. I think I'll just go to it. He's pretty much, I mean, I won't spoil everything. Again, check out the magazine, buy it, get even more cool stats and like tidbits from Mark Pope. But he's still in the process of rehabbing. I don't think he'll be ready for opening day, but Jaden Quintance, like he is, I think these days people use the word generational too loosely. So I'm not going to do that. But I mean, he is a transformational player. Like the thing about Kentucky is like they had literally like one of the top ranking offenses in the league last year, or they finished the season, right? Averaging the most points per game, right? But their defense, I think, was ranked like 222nd or something like that. You know, I think Jaden is the type of guy. I mean, obviously, Mark Pope wants everyone to buy in on the defensive end. But when you have that true defensive anchor like Quintance, I mean, like it changes everything. It changes everything. I mean, they played at like one of the fastest paces in the nation. And when you do that, obviously, it takes a toll on your ability to play defense. You miss like an early shot in transition. Boom, that thing's going the other way. But we have a guy like Jaden, right? 9.7% block rate, right? And the thing is, like, I don't know, the sample size is big enough. Why are we so high on him as an NBA draft prospect? I mean, like, dude, whether it's in like the open court or in the half court, he's getting these blocks, he's blocking, he's defending without fouling. That changes everything. That changes everything for Kentucky, right? Because I believe last year Kentucky, they set a record. They had 8 wins against top 15 ranked teams, you know. But again, like, they ended the season with what, 12 losses because they get into these shootouts, right? And they can't get a stop down the stretch. If he comes back, yeah, I have a lot of optimism that they can be a force, like a legitimate force in the SEC.
That's before factoring in like Jalen Lowe, who came from Pitt.
Yeah.
Aberdeen. Aberdeen. Cam Williams is going to be the Kobe Bryant role for them. Like that, they have a good roster.
Yeah, they're loaded. I mean, they're really good. I mean, again, I think it comes down to the health of Quaintance, really. I mean, if he's out there and he impacts the game the way we all know he can do, Kentucky can absolutely win the SEC. There is no doubt.
Yeah.
I love what he did in the portal. I think he did an awesome job.
Definitely.
You know, with Lowe and Aberdeen, and you know, even Diabate is a really nice player for them from Alabama. Like, he got some guys that he's familiar with, which I think always helps. Like when you already played against the guy in league. I think that helped. I love what they have. I think they could legitimately win a national title this year. I think they're that good.
Yeah, I agree. Let's pivot to like the Auburns and the Alabamas of the world, because before we got on, I was telling Conrad, I initially had Auburn and Alabama both in my preseason top 25. Since then, Jaleel Bethea is going to miss substantial time, which I don't know how much he changed for Alabama. Like, again, he's a former 5-star, so he's more an in-theory guy than, like, no one is. But, I mean, it still hurts because people were anticipating a breakout from him. And, obviously, Bruce Pearl retired from Auburn, which I think does change some things.
Yeah.
So, where do you stand with those teams? Like, are they still, borderline 20 to 25 in the country, or am I underestimating that a little bit?
I like Bama a little bit more than Auburn. Obviously, I think
I like Auburn more.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I think they both make a great case. Nate Oates. The thing about it though is I think both teams, there was a nice degree of retention in both programs. With Bama, Nate Oates has made it very clear that pretty much LeBaron Philon has the keys to this offense, as he should. Having said that, he's not just blowing smoke up Philon's ass. He's made it clear that like there are things that he needs to improve on, like individually, that will benefit the team. Obviously, his shooting is still is definitely, I wouldn't say an area of concern, but it's something that I think everyone acknowledges that he needs to improve upon. But I think what Oates has challenged Philon to do is to become more of a vocal leader. I think his floor game, you can tell when you watch him, when he's on, his floor game is spot on. But again, right, he is the point guard. He will definitely have the ball in his hands pretty much like 99% of the time. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it's gonna be in that range. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you with Jaleel Bethea. I think he could be an X factor. The guys who I think the reason why I'm a little bit more optimistic with them is, Philon developed a really good rapport with Aiden Holloway, who returns. So, I think Holloway, I mean, again, finishes one of the best shooters in the SEC, right? For like 41+%, right? On almost 6 attempts per game. He was a very efficient volume shooter, gives a nice kind of balance to the backcourt. And then the guy that redshirted last year, Latrell Wrightsell, again, another 40+% guy. That changes everything. That's why I'm ideally, by all accounts, Wrightsell is healthy. He should be ready to go. If that's the case, we don't need to depend on Jaleel Bethea, right? Like, if he gives us something, cool, But I think
that also redshirted last year for what it's worth.
Yeah. But But yeah, I think if there is like another reason to be optimistic about Bama, I think they kind of quietly assembled a really nice front court rotation. You know, Taylor Bowen, from Florida State. Noah Williamson brings them some size from Bucknell, and then they'll be joining like Aiden Sherrill. They got multiple guys who are like 6'10" and over, and they could all shoot it a little bit. I mean, like offensively, that kind of changes things again, right? If Phylon's still kind of getting into his groove as a threat from outside, cool. All right, we'll reverse it. Right, we'll put our bigs on the perimeter, allow him to attack the paint. Yeah, I think there's just an opportunity there for a little bit more like game to game consistency. And again, as Nate Oates was stressing, I don't think they were good enough last year defensively. They have a lot more size. I would say maybe not traditional rim protection, but they have athletes, right? They got 6'10" guys who can move their feet, which I think is, for them what they're looking for. I think they want more length, more lateral quickness, on defense. So I think mission accomplished. It's to be seen if it all comes together.
It's as if Conrad, with that segue, was able to see what was on my screen. Of course, it stopped sharing after I was doing the transition. Now, you love how things work out. So with Phylon and Aiden Holloway on the court, Alabama's offense, 97th percentile, that's to be expected. Does this concern you, Connor? I think you just answered it. This defensive rating in the 28th percentile with those two guys on the court together, two undersized guards. Like, I know we just talked about Taylor Bowen. You talked about Aiden Sherrill. Like, they have guys, like you said, 6'10" that can move their feet. Like, does that – Noah Williamson is another one. He averaged 1.9 stocks a game last year. Was a Patriot League Player of the Year. Like, do they have enough to basically deal with the defensive issues? Having basically three guards that are 6'4" or smaller – starting with Phylon, Holloway, and Wrightsell. And then even Houston Millet's only 6'5". So, like, they're going to be playing basically two bigs on the court at the same time. Like, is that enough to mask the defensive deficiencies with those two on the court together?
I mean, Coach Oates has kind of, implied that they may be able to, or they may likely defend a little bit more, like in a zone. Probably like a moving zone, again, given like how much bouncier their front court is compared to years past. If that's the case, it kind of makes sense, as you said, to kind of, I wouldn't say mask, but to back up the potential defensive limitations of a Phylon Holloway backcourt. But we'll see, because usually, right, when you play zone, right, it's usually because you lack one of the other, like you lack big. So it's kind of interesting.
Syracuse did it for a long time, so I understand a bad defense when you play zone. I get it, believe me.
But I mean, like, you don't, right? I mean, typically you go with zone, like, if, okay, maybe you don't have that traditional, like, shot blocker or backline defender. That's the irony. They have, like, four guys, if you include, what's his name? Keaton Bierstow from Tarleton State. I mean, they have, like, four guys who are 6'10" and over. And yet, like, I don't know. We'll see. But, that definitely still is the area of concern, or not concern, the area of emphasis during training camp. So we'll see how that goes.
So I added Aiden Sherrill in CVB Analytics in 111 minutes. Same thing, 100 percentile. That offensive rating is insane. I know it's a pretty small sample size, but same thing. He actually made the defensive rating worse at the 25 percentile.
Okay.
For what that's worth, with all three of them on the court together.
Yeah, I think the concern with them is defense, just generally speaking. I mean, every time you watch Nate Oates' team, they take like 33s a game, put up 100 points, and they give up 100 points. I mean, you remember the BYU game last year when they were in the tournament? It was like 100 to 105, and listen, they're going to score. I mean, you have Phylon and Holloway, and when Bethea comes back, I mean, they're going to light people up. That's what they do. The concern is the front court's kind of unproven a little bit. Williamson's coming from a small league that could take a little time to adjust from the Patriot League to the SEC. It's a pretty big jump. And then like I think Conrad hit it's the defense, right? I mean, Natos' teams historically have not been great defensively. But I think for his teams to take that next step and potentially play for a national title, they've got to defend better. It's just the bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. On the flip side with Auburn, again, I still like their team. Am I allowed to say it now? I mean, there's a guy on Auburn who I think could be in play for Conference Player of the Year.
Not allowed to say it.
Hint, right? But I don't know. Like, I feel like they don't have as much shooting as they did last year. Like, it's all theoretical shooting. You know, like,
Right.
this guy profiles like he can, but he's actually never done it, or nowhere near
Right.
at a consistent level. I really like it's ironic. There are teams that just lack shot creation, right? Like last year, Kentucky lacked shot creation, right? Like outside of a few guys, right? So that's why, like, okay, cool. You pair Jalen Lowe and Otega Owe, right? Auburn has a lot of shot creation. They just don't have a lot of shot makers, specifically from the perimeter. Like obviously Pettiford, we all know he's got very like high upside, big time NBA draft guy. Abdul Bashir, right? I mean, you got hoopers. You know what I'm saying? Like if this was a game on one-on-one, I feel like their team could win a lot of their matchups. But I think they're kind of limited. Right now it's kind of looking like they may continue playing at like a bit of a slower pace. You kind of see the competition in the SEC, and frankly, even the non-conference opponents, right? Like you kind of wonder how sustainable that is, unless they're like fantastic defensively, which maybe they can be. But yeah, that's why like I still like Auburn a lot. But as Steve and I were saying, like they might kind of be on the bubble of like the top 25, at least to start the season.
I will say, I think college sports coaching matters a hell of a lot more. Maybe that's an obvious statement, but in my opinion, like coaching matters a lot more in college sports than it does in the pro sports. And like losing Bruce Pearl like is a monumental loss for a team who was just in the Final Four. Let's take a few minutes because like we talked about all the top teams. Like I think we talked about 5 of probably the top 6 in the SEC this year. So I'd be remiss if we didn't spend these final few minutes talking about the SEC, talking about Tennessee. They're just like they're like the one constant in that conference. Like they're just always, even if you think they're gonna have a down year, like they don't. They just Rick Barnes is shown to be a model of consistency there. And same thing like this year, like I'm not saying people are counting Tennessee out, but like you don't hear people talking about them like potentially winning this conference, and like they very well can. Jacoby Gillespie, we're ranking our top 100 players for the magazine as well. I had Jacoby Gillespie in my top 20 in terms of best players in college basketball. Amari Abram was awesome for Louisiana Tech last year. Nate Amons is the number 4 freshman 5-star in the country. Felix Akpara, they're going to have another elite defense behind him. Then they have Kate Phillips. They have Jalen Carey. Like JP Australia, I know he was hurt most of last year. But my point is, like, this is good enough of a roster to give to Rick Barnes that just they're going to be good. We know that. They're going to defend their asses off, and they're going to be pretty good. So, Conrad, what's your, I suppose, opinion on Tennessee and where they stack up? Will they stack up in the SEC hierarchy?
I think I have them kind of around like they're definitely in the top half. You know, and that's the thing about like when we discuss the SEC. I mean, I think you guys know, but like for other people, when I say like, oh, a team's in the bottom half, that doesn't mean they're bad, right?
That's still a tournament team if you're in the upper.
Exactly, as it was last year, right? Like literally the 12th ranked team made the NCAA tournament. So, but with Tennessee, I think they're poised to be like closer to the top half. It's interesting again, like, and with these last couple years at Tennessee, like say for example last year with like Chaz Lanier, and then before that it was who's our buddy Dalton Connect.
Dalton Connect.
Right? They kind of became a little bit more perimeter
Shout out Liv
oriented.
from Love Island, who is now dating Dalton Connect, by the way.
There you go. See, look at that. This is the type of insight you get with the magazine.
Conrad, you
But-
need to add for the magazine viewers that Dalton Connect played at Tennessee and is now dating Liv from Love Island.
Right. I failed to realize that was relevant to this upcoming season.
You know what? No one spend your $12 anymore.
But no, I think I think these last couple seasons, the Vols became a little bit more perimeter oriented, which is not a bad thing. When I say that, right, it's not like, oh my God, they're just jacking up threes. But I think, if you look at Rick Barnes, his preferred style of play is to still try to have not necessarily run everything through the post, but have like an actual interior presence, right? This is where, right, like I gotta admit, most of these teams, even though they get 4-star recruits, I didn't really focus too much of my writing about some of their incoming freshmen. In this case with Tennessee, I do think, yes, right, Nate Ament absolutely is a big factor for this team. I think, if you just go on YouTube, watch a couple 2 minutes of his highlight compilations, or the guy is like a physical specimen, right? And again, his ball skills for a player of his size is pretty fantastic. I mean, obviously, if you're an NBA draft junkie, he's going to be he's likely going to be a lottery pick. It's interesting because I feel like this is more of the type of roster that Rick Barnes prefers. Having said that, I don't really think he has much of an option of deviating because, again, I just don't think they have the shooting. And that's the interesting thing, too, is that, you go up and down, you start nitpicking at each of these rosters, right? Like, shooting still comes at a premium, even for the high major teams. And it's pretty incredible how many teams don't really have, maybe more than 3, I would say, consistent shooters. So it'll definitely be interesting. But again, I'm with you. I think to a lesser extent, Jalen Carey could definitely have an impact. Again, just in terms of being a connective guy. But I think they'll be a factor, but I still have them a tier outside of the top of the SEC. And that's been the case. It's kind of interesting how you said it, right? He's been remarkably consistent in kind of covering some of these other teams. Consistency is actually what's putting other coaches on the hot seat. It's cool. We won 20 games. We only won 8 conference games, right? We're a first round out, at a certain point, yeah, you want to have, higher expectations, with more success. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how these guys factor in.
Conrad, you're one of the few people in the industry that, when you say it, I believe it. I'm not just saying
Yeah,
it.
see, I'm not like that, Conrad.
But
full of BS, man.
Exactly.
If you said what's one take Conrad has that he's going to be wrong about, I'm just betting on Rick Barnes proving you wrong. I just am. Just because, again, every year I just feel like Tennessee is a team that no one talks about, and every year they are top 2 or top 3 in this conference.
Oh, I mean, they are what they are, right? I mean, they're always a top 3 or 4 seed. They finish top 4 in the league, and then in the tournament they run out of gas. I mean, this has happened the last 3 or 4 years.
Weren't they in the Elite 8 2 years ago?
Yeah, but he still hasn't made a Final Four there, which is what they've been asking for the last 15 years there. I mean, and he's also on retirement watch. You got to remember, he's an older coach. But I love his team. I love Nate. I think Nate's going to be really good, and I like Gillespie a lot. My only concern with them all the time is offense. Can they get enough offense out of their group? That's always been the issue. But I think this year they might have answered some questions there.
My final note on the SEC, and Andrew, if you have any final follow-ups before we switch to the Sun Belt, I'm really high on Vanderbilt. Given what Mark Byington was given, that Vanderbilt was always the bottom tier SEC team for literally years. I had the chance to speak with Mark Byington for this magazine. Conrad had some obligation, whatever, but I filled in for him. Point being, and
teamwork.
Yeah, but I'm buying what that guy's selling. I was talking to him about how in our top 100 players, I have Devin McLaughlin like 40 something, like high 40s. And he convinced me that I was still too low on him. Like him, Tyler Nickel, Duke Miles is really good. I like Frankie Collins, Jalen Washington. I know like wasn't created in UNC last year. I love Tyler Harris. He shot almost 50% from 3 last year. Like I think Vanderbilt's going to be really good once. And they were good last year. Like in a 14-bid league, Vanderbilt was safely in. Like they were not a bubble team last year. They were firmly in. And I think they're going to be firmly in again this year.
Right.
For what that's worth. It was just something I wanted to throw out there before we move on to Sun Belt. Andrew, do you have any follow-ups for Conrad about the SEC?
The one team that isn't really I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it, obviously, but Sean Miller was hired at Texas.
Yes.
Now, to replace Rodney Terry. Whether people believe Rodney Terry deserved to be out or not, Sean Miller is a massive upgrade, regardless of how you want to cut it.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how this plays out because Chris Del Conte wanted him so bad for so many years. I am very interested to see how Texas does. I think they're going to be in the tournament. I think they're a good team. I don't know if they're like an elite team, but I think they're a team that can be like a 7 or an 8 seed in the first round type of team.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see what Sean Miller does in year one.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I'm glad that you brought up Texas because they're one of the teams that definitely stood out to me. As you said, again, right? It was they're one of the teams I was just saying. I was kind of referencing. Like you're remarkably consistent, and like Texas actually last season was hilarious, right? Like I think they finished last season like around 8th.
I think they were
13th.
13th.
They were 13th, right? But like I think in terms of like their rankings within the conference, yeah, they were like 7th in offensive rating, 8th in defensive rating, 8th in net rating, 8th in points scored, 8th in points allowed, 8th in they were like remarkably mediocre, like as it pertains, like relevant to the rest of the conference. So, I think it all culminated again. It's, I don't know. In my opinion, if you look at last year's roster, obviously, right, Trey Johnson went on to the NBA, Arthur Kaluma, right? Like what is he, like a 5-year at that point, right? Like a 5-year, 5th-year senior and everything like that. Like they had good talent. And I understand where the university is coming from. It's like, I think we've kind of relatively overachieved. What I find really fascinating is, again, so they have the coaching change. They bring in Sean Miller, who ironically, Sean Miller's Xavier team eliminated Texas in the tournament.
Which was the game of the tournament, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, that was a great game.
But with not only just because, like, Dalen Swain followed Sean Miller to Texas, who I'm extremely high on. I think he's going to be huge and great in the SEC. But Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, Shendell Weaver, like they could have easily transferred out and they elected to stay, which I think, as Andrew was saying, I think they recognize the caliber of coach that Sean Miller is. I think they really respect him. They totally understand like his reputation. And I think for them, his style of play completely fits their skill set. I think Texas, again, I have them. Well, I mean, 8th last year is technically, I guess you could make an argument. It's in the top half or however you want. Are you a glass half full guy or a glass half empty?
Sure.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, they're kind of pushing in like in the 20 wins range and everything like that. And definitely contending for a higher seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I love Cam Heide. I think he's going to be really good for them. He's going to come right off the bench, and he was at Purdue last year. I think that kid's going to have a really nice year for Sean Miller.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's talk Sunbelt.
Oh, yeah.
So, Conrad, obviously, Andrew and I actually, I don't want to speak for Andrew, but I think it's safe to say we are much more well-versed in the SEC than we are the Sunbelt.
That's fair.
Agreed.
So, like, this is a conference where, Conrad, how much familiarity did you have with the Sun? I mean, again, like we're all Conrad Pascual sickos. We all have some familiarity with almost all these teams. But when you got assigned the Sun Belt for the magazine, like, how much did you know about the conference at the time?
Honestly, there's only maybe like 2 or 3 schools that I probably like. I would say I can honestly say like I would have sat down and watched their games like with regularity. Like if I watch the other schools, it's usually because they're the opponent of another team that I would prefer to watch. Or as a lot of the coaches recognize, maybe you recognize our program from our football team.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which again, I'm surprised. Like I wouldn't say surprised. I do find it interesting how many coaches brought that up, you know, and they actually did. They had some good little nuggets of like insight or opinions on how that kind of affects, right, like their program. So, but I definitely understand that it's probably not as popular as say like the SEC or some of the other, you know, conferences that we all covered, but it's extremely like competitive and fascinating.
It was a four-way tie for first place last year.
Yeah.
For the conference. It was who? Arkansas State, Troy, JMU, and
South Alabama.
South Alabama.
Those 4 tied for first place.
Yeah, South Alabama's controversial ending to the season.
Yeah.
So, Conrad, you had the opportunity to interview 5, 6 something coaches in the conference.
Yeah.
What type of insight did you gain? Like they're all meaningful, obviously. Like,
yeah.
The best part about doing this magazine is the insight we're able to gain from talking to over, you know, collectively 110, 112 different coaches across every conference, 31 different conferences in the country. What type of insight did you get, you know, about this conference?
So one sentiment that I think like every coach I spoke to shared, they may have phrased it somewhat differently, but it was the exact same sentiment, was that there is no such thing as retention in the Sun Belt. Right. They all pointed out like, okay, Conrad, say for example, in the last 2 years, right, you have 30 all conference players, right? 15 per year. Do you want to know how many came back the following year? 0, right? And multiple coaches said that. Another coach, I mean, he was a little bit, he used some more pointed words, right? I mean, like nothing disrespectful, but he said, you know, the Sun Belt is annually pilfered, you know, and that is just a reality that they understand, and they have to work within like those parameters. But having said that, you see all the different creative ways that they build their roster. Some of them who have no problem like sharing. I loved what Dustin Kern said. I mean, like maybe you know it, but you don't really think about it until someone says it out loud. But like he describes his way of building a roster. Like, how do you build chemistry in this current landscape, right? And Coach Kearns was saying, right, like he uses the 4 through 9 strategy, which is okay. Players 4 through 9 on his roster, right? Like my top 3, he goes, my top 3 players, if they ball out, they're likely, you know, they're gone in the transfer portal. And the guys at the bottom of my roster who didn't get enough minutes, they're going to go in the transfer portal because they want playing time elsewhere. So he's saying, right, it's the 4 through 9 guys. Those are the guys who are most likely going to stay. Those are the guys who can bring the consistency, like chemistry the next year. You're not starting from scratch, everything. I think that's really, really fascinating. You look at the results kind of speak for themselves, right? I mean, he was not like, you know, App State was not one of the teams, right, in that 4-way tie for the regular season title. But I mean, they've basically consistently been a highly competitive program every year of Coach Kern's tenure. So it's really interesting. But again, I feel like a lot of the coaches kind of pour themselves into the team. I mean, I'm sure other, you know, coaches in other conferences do, but pour themselves with regards to like, you know, that this is how they're going to both establish an identity, a culture, and that is exactly like, you know, how they're going to attract players. And it's pretty cool how they were able to do that.
So last year, obviously, Stephen mentioned there was a 4-way tie at the top. It was very chaotic. Do we expect something similar this year? Like, are we expecting a cluster at the top, you know, fighting? You know, Troy obviously was the auto bid last year.
Yeah.
It feels like they're probably going to be in the mix again.
Yeah.
with JMU and potentially Arkansas State, with the coaching change that they made. Can you just talk about the top of the league and, if it's going to be clustered, if we could see something similar?
I think it could be clustered again. I actually do. In doing like the rankings for this conference, I'm like, man, this is actually again, it's closer than you'd probably like if you're actually trying to make some cool predictions. But the thing is, I think it's going to be clustered because some of the teams that had a down year, they seem really poised to make a big bounce back. I don't know. I don't know if I want to reveal right now, but like right now, I think my number one ranked team in the Sun Belt, they were not in that 4-way tie. That's why I'm saying, right? Like there's a lot of movement. So I think even with the coaching change with Ryan Pannone coming into Arkansas State, I still think that they're poised to again, contend for the conference title, for both the regular season and the conference title. It'll be interesting because a number of coaches they really feel it's, how do I want to say this? They're not necessarily complaining about the selection committee's process and everything like that. But if wins against their teams are helping bolster, right, like the high majors case for an at-large bid, then why wouldn't those teams get more consideration themselves, right? That's all speaking. They understand that right now it's not going to change. It's a one bid conference. But I do think that there are a number of them who definitely have made the case that maybe they should get a little bit more consideration for an at-large bid as opposed to just the conference's auto bid.
And for what it's worth, the commissioner, I think, is the chair of the tournament committee this year.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. The Sun Belt commissioner is the tournament chair this year. So, I mean, look, I don't, obviously, better than me. The Sun Belt's probably a one bid league anyway.
Yeah.
But I am curious to watch Arkansas State. Brian Hodgson did such a great job there last year. And, obviously he moved on to South Florida and now you're bringing in a new coach, new culture. I'm just very interested to see if they can keep that going or if that was like a one and done scenario with Hodgson.
Well, Ryan Pannone kind of comes from the Nate Oates coaching tree, right? And Nate Oates comes from like a more NBA oriented, kind of coaching concepts. In talking to Coach Pannone, he did mention that, right? I mean, he's coached in the NBA, he's coached in the G League, he's coached overseas, right? Like China, Israel, all over. So, I mean, he seems like he's really ready. Like he has enough experience in different schemes where he could definitely get this. Like he feels very confident that this Arkansas State roster can definitely come together, right? Like there's no square peg in a round hole situation. I definitely have them there as a contender. I'd probably put them in. Well, honestly, I have them in the top two. I think they're right there. They're right there with my mystery number one.
Okay, you don't have to reveal it now. It's all good.
Yeah. But it's definitely interesting. A number of coaches kind of, again, going back to that football thing, they kind of emphasize, I mean, you could even make the same case about like the SEC, right? Like there are certain programs where let's be real, right? Like, let's just say if a university had $10, $7 of it's going to the football team and the other $3 is spread across the other right sports teams.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the case with some of these teams in the Sun Belt, App State, Coastal Carolina, they understand that football takes a priority. Having said that, it just means that they have to be a little bit more aggressive, in terms of their recruiting efforts. But I think the record speaks for itself. They've found ways to do that. They've been adapting.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar thing with the OBC when I did it. They were talking about football and how football kind of dominates the show, and
yeah,
they're just, the resources are limited. I mean, let's be honest. It's when you're at a small school like in these smaller leagues like the Sun Belt, the resources are limited. Um, like JMU has a great football program. Their
Yeah.
football program has been very good for a while. Like that's a prime example right there. And I think Coach Fragling's done an awesome job. I mean, he's probably one of the better coaches in the league. Um, they're actually my pick to win the Sun Belt. I think they're going to win the league. That would be my pick. I'm
James
sure it's not
Madison?
your pick. Yeah, I'm going with JMU. I
That's
think
cool.
James Madison wins the league.
I have him third, but again,
Okay.
like 1, 2, 3. Going back to your original question, like I feel like they're all kind of in the running together. Yeah. So
So I'm just pulling up Sun Belt rosters as we're talking.
nice.
Conrad, go ahead, Steven, sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew.
No, I was going to ask. I know the middle of this league also is interesting. Like you think about a team like a Marshall, who in the past has had spurts. Even an Old Dominion is another one that I think is quite interesting. Can you talk about some of the teams that like a lot of people don't really know about that like could have a huge role this year in the Sun Belt?
Yes.
Like some like you know what I mean? Like obviously we know about JMU and Arkansas State.
Texas State.
Yeah, I'm interested in that team. I like their roster.
This is again funny because Texas State is eerily similar to Texas, right? About the whole kind of mirrored in mediocrity. And it's not even exaggeration. Again, it's just something I came across. I had to check the numbers and everything. Like this last season, 16-16, 9-9 in the conference, right? Like dead smack middle in terms of offense, defense, and it's actually been that way for like 3 years, last 3 seasons as well. It's interesting because again, 9-9, they're definitely a factor. In conference play, and they've even had success in non-conference play. It's just that again, they haven't really been able to get over the hump. And when that happens, unfortunately, right, it's the bad type of consistency, I guess, or maybe the not good type of consistency, because you've proven that you could definitely hold your own, but they just can't get over the hump. I'm really interested to see if this year they can make a little bit more headway. Coach Johnson, he's been at the helm for, I believe, 6 years now. Yeah,
It's been a while.
Yeah. And frankly, I think most media outlets have them kind of somewhere again ranked in the middle. I don't know if that's just because of reputation. I admit I don't have them in the top 3, but I could see them being there. They're one of the teams that, again, weren't as pilfered. They at least kept like 3 of their starters. Now you can make an argument, well, if they kept 3 of their starters, were they not conference players? Maybe not. But I mean, like they still, again, Mark Drone, Caden Gums, they have a very dynamic backcourt, and that's the thing. They have a lot of familiarity. That comes, that's rare. That's rare in this conference. So I think, again, coach who's been there for a long time, players who played for him and only him, I feel like they can kind of maybe be a dark horse this year. There are other teams though, in terms of like kind of, I don't know, sleepers. I think they're definitely one. South Mississippi is interesting because they're a very high variance team. like from a game to game basis. So, you get hot early, I don't know, in the first quarter, like that could change, right? That's the difference of like what, 2 or 3 wins. And now you're looking at something completely different. Those teams are always interesting because sometimes you don't really get an accurate read of just like how good they are. But I mean, I think that's why they're still, most people have them in the top half, or at least towards the top half or the middle of the Sun Belt, just because like they've shown they really have like beaten anyone on any given day. So
Conrad, I want to ask, and again, you could say no because I know you said you have a mystery team in number one that wasn't like in the four that were tied last year.
I could say it's fine. It's cool.
I was just gonna ask, like, is there like a team in the Sunbelt that like we should know about that like maybe is going to surprise people or anything like that? It doesn't necessarily need to be the team that's number one, but
yes, I would say as Andrew mentioned earlier, I think Marshall definitely is kind of poised to be a little bit better than most people expect. Again, I think they've just kind of like been a little bit under the radar in terms of like their recruiting. A lot of guys coming from like either Div 2 or like JUCO. Frankly, a lot of teams do, but it's like very obscure, like, okay. But no, I'll go ahead and say it. Like the team I have at number one, who I think is poised to really make a massive bounce back, is Old Dominion. I really do. Yeah. I think like last year, and it's not just because I had an opportunity to talk to Coach Jones, but like you look at his roster, and again, he was one that was obviously affected by the transfer portal, but of the guys who stayed, like Old Dominion's situation was really interesting. Like, last year was Mike Jones's first year as head coach, of Old Dominion, and it's almost they were basically kind of snake bitten, from before the season even began. So they had guys who were projected starters. They basically were out. Yeah, they didn't play. So then they had like either guys like kind of upperclassmen who had to play out of position, to kind of account for the starting lineup. And then those guys got hurt. So then you had a bunch of like true freshmen come in, right, who are either inexperienced or they're also playing out of position, right? So in a weird way, it kind of set them up for this year, right? Like it became a very developmental year. And then they reloaded through the portal. One of the hallmarks of this conference is, again, post play. Like you don't survive this conference. Like I'm not trying to say anything. I'm like, hey, even about the SEC. But like having a front court full of just a bunch of like stretch fours or stretch fives, that's not going to cut it in the Sun Belt. So, with guys like teams like Old Dominion, Arkansas State, all the ones that we named that we think are going to be in the mix, for the conference title. Yeah. I mean, I think they have a lot of like real bruisers, in their front court. So I think, yeah, they have the opportunity to have a big bounce back.
Okay. That's pretty much all I have. I mean, Andrew, do you have any questions, like follow-ups? Just Conrad?
No, I think Conrad hit it all. I mean, I think the Sun Belt's, it's a fun league to watch. The top's always kind of bunched. I think they also have the weird format for the conference tournament where it's like the ladder format. Yeah, so that's interesting. And then the SEC obviously is going to be one of the best leagues in the country, as it always is. And I do agree with him on Kentucky. I think they can legitimately do it again and get back to what they're supposed to be. And I think the most underrated team in the whole SEC is Tennessee. I just think they're going to be right there again because of what Rick Barnes has done. And the Sun Belt will be a fun league. I like the Old Dominion pick. I do. I think their roster is talented. Like you said, Mike Jones got snake bitten a little bit. He was under Mike Young at Virginia Tech, so he clearly knows offense. Like Mike Young is one of the better offensive coaches in the country. So I think Old Dominion will be there. I think they'll be in the mix. I think that's a really good pick by Conrad. But yeah, this was a good time. It's fun. I'm very impressed with his knowledge of the Sun Belt. Very impressed.
Thank you. Got to make my way out, dude. I'd totally be like a booster or something. But yeah, all this, it's already there. It's a couple days. This thing's gonna launch. I encourage everybody, if you haven't already, you got to buy this magazine. It's not just me. These two gentlemen, a number, I don't even know how many there are. What, 16 of us, right?
15, I think. 16, yeah, something like that.
16 if you include the graphics. 17 if you include graphics, people.
Yeah.
final note before we sign off. What I will say is, like, we've interviewed, as I said, over 110 coaches for this. Coaches are buying it. So, like, and a lot of coaches told us when they bought it, you guys are writing up the conference. You know some of these things better than I do right now. So, like, if you want the same information that some college coaches told us they're going to be using, go spend that $12. I mean, that's as much as I could say. Again, the link to purchase is in the YouTube description of this YouTube video or in our pinned tweet on Twitter. Go purchase it. Again, we are going to be releasing on the 13th, next Monday. I'm hoping for Monday morning because I know a lot of people have off from work that day, but I can't guarantee it. It might be Monday night. But with that said, again, we highly recommend purchasing it. $12. I know first year publication. Promise you won't be disappointed. With that said, myself, Conrad, Andrew, we will talk to you guys soon. We'll be going Thursday. I don't think we figured out what conferences we're doing on Thursday yet, but stay tuned for that, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening.
Take care.